Now tuning in to Earbud Media. Audio for everyone.
I feel like having a commanding, authoritative voice is so important and valuable, but I also feel like for someone like me, that is how Theranos happened, where I'm just like, yeah, absolutely, I trust everything that you say.
Yeah, I love impressions of her.
Oh,
I think
God.
they're the funniest things ever.
Amanda Seyfried who, you know? It is absolutely an honor to have you here, Cassidy. Just that we needed more commanding, tall people on this show for, being an audio medium. That's an energy that we do not bring to the space.
That's really important.
I think that a lot of people would say over the almost 6 years, which the Into the Twilight brings a lot of gay energy, which unfortunately does mean like short or average height. And what we needed was a globetrotter, tall filmmaker to the space. Cassidy, for anyone who has the audacity to not know who you are, could you tell everyone who you are and all of the various things that you do?
Sure. Thank you so much. I do struggle to start because I have a lot of random things in my life that's going on. So my name's Cassidy Olsen. I am based in Dublin. I've lived in Ireland for about 2 years, but I am from New Jersey.
Amazing.
Shout out Jersey Shore.
Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Let's not talk about Crimes of the Future. Let's talk about Jersey Shore.
Let's just talk about the Jersey Shore. So I won't even get into this fully, but that's like where I'm from.
Oh.
Like I'm from Toms River, which is where Seaside Heights is, and it was on and when I was in high school, and it was like filming. Like we'd see them all the time. So big part of my life. But I am from the shore, and then I am a member of the Boston Film Critics Group, which might be like, why? You live in Dublin and you're from New Jersey. Well, I'll tell you. I lived in Boston for 6 years, and I started kind of my film journalism criticism career in Boston. And I write for the Boston Globe on occasion, and I write for Dig Boston. And I got a part of the wonderful film scene in Boston, and they're very kind to let me still be a part of the group in this crazy world we live in, now that I don't actually live in that country. But I kind of got my start there, and I contribute to those publications. And in the past, honestly, since the start of the whole pandemic, I've honestly shifted actually into filmmaking. Nice. So I have a short film that I made in 2021. The poster,
folks.
That's going to some festivals at
Chef's
the moment.
kiss.
Poster's really good. Shout out Emma Burrs. Emma Burrs is a wonderful graphic designer. But yeah, so I'm a filmmaker. I do some writing. I do some editing. I'm a big fan of the movies, as they say. I used to do food journalism. I did a lot of food writing, which I do less of now, but it's something that I really enjoy. And apparently I also do Twilight podcasts. So
absolutely.
This is and then of course under all of this I am a Twilight fan.
Right, so first and foremost, right.
That's my whole MO.
What I'm hearing from you, Cassidy, is your big three here is, and I want to get your opinion on this, is a Dublin sun, a Boston moon, and a Jersey Shore rising. Is that correct?
I think that's accurate. And you know, it's really funny because I'm obviously American, and I'm walking around and I work at an Irish company, and I'm friends with Irish people because that's where I live. And everyone's like, oh, so you're from Boston? I say no. And then I say I'm from Jersey. And then the first thing is The Sopranos, and they just want to talk about The Sopranos. Or they want to talk about Boston, because a lot of them I think have been to Boston, but no one's like been to Seaside Heights. So we talk about The Sopranos. So yeah, I think those are my like core identity pieces.
I mean, fuck, if you just tell someone that as your big three, they're gonna be like, oh, you are absolutely gonna be the most commanding person in the room. How do you not have that?
Yeah, I think there's been some pretty derogatory things said about all of those places. And I think that if you meet me, people, yeah, it's a funny. I think I've tried really hard to overcome some of them, but now I've just fully accept all of them. So
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I would love to know, as of this past week, as of this past month, life in general, is there a happy thing that's happened to you recently that you've been enjoying?
a happy thing. I mean, yeah, honestly, I generally hate. This is the month of August at the moment. Generally hate August. I'm no offense. Sorry to the folks.
same.
You know, Sunday of the year, tends to give me a lot of anxiety, even though I'm not in school, so why do I care? But honestly, I've had a really good August. Like I've been feeling good. I think lately, I think everyone can relate. I understand that we are dealing with like in just wild temperatures. But at the moment, it is really, really warm in a way that I'm really enjoying in Dublin, because Dublin in Ireland, generally, temperatures are never as high as what I'm used to.
Sure.
And it's a rainy nation, kind of cloudy, and it's been absolutely beautiful. So I've really been enjoying going out, and it doesn't get dark until like 10:30, 11. So I've just had like a lovely time in the evenings, just like sitting, reading, going for a drink, hanging out with my friends, like just I know that's like the sun maybe isn't like the coolest answer, but I've really been feeling good about the sun. And I know some people are like, fuck off, like it's been horrible, but here it's good. Here it's like it's been like 75 degrees to 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Maybe
it's not
climate
like
change isn't bad.
maybe it isn't bad. So I'm benefiting, but I do think that if we push it past it, I understand it's bad for the world, but I've been enjoying the sun.
Great.
What have you been enjoying recently?
I have been very deep in the paint of Love Island recently.
Oh boy.
And last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, I tried and failed to watch the Love Island US. The one that was like in Vegas.
The one on the rooftop in Vegas?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I don't think the show is for me. I don't understand it.
Was that your first Love Island experience?
Ever. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
like,
just to preface, I am a Love Island expert, so I would love to hear what you have to say about Love Island.
Good.
I'm deeply invested in Love Island.
I was trying to understand your culture a little bit.
Thank you.
I have been watching the most recent UK season. I did not realize, and I've just been putting it on as background, like I don't give a fuck. And then I have been unfortunately like now invested in these people. I didn't realize that Love Island only gets interesting after like 30 episodes. When they do something called, and I will try to say this the way they say it, Casa Amor. I didn't realize that you had to get a fucking 30 episode.
Yeah.
Like, you had to get it that far invested in. Anyways, so I will keep you updated as I go through.
Where are you in this season, if I may ask?
I think I paused before this on, like, episode 38. And I
So
finally...
you just got out of Casa Amor?
They are all... they are all, not doing well. But I can say...
So that's,
I can say I do now know the difference between Gemma and Paige. And that took me a really long time.
The brown-haired girls, yeah.
Because I couldn't tell Gemma and Paige and fucking Andrew and Luca apart. I was like, you are the same person. They're just changing your name for fun.
Casa Amor is... a really funny tweet for a friend of mine today that is doing somewhat well that said in Brooklyn, like the movie Brooklyn with Saoirse Ronan based on the Tom Cobian novel, that when she goes back to Ireland from America, that's like her doing her Casa Amor.
Oh my god.
And she's like, maybe there is something better for me out there. Maybe and then it's like putting her to the test. And then she like returns after like the Casa Amor. Casa Amor is like it's like the hero's journey for all this.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I will not give anything away about this series, this season. But it is like it's kind of a national pastime over here. Like obviously it's based in the UK, but then Ireland, funny enough, like we all watch, but you're not allowed to vote in the Republic.
Damn.
So you have to watch it, and then they're like not ROI, and I'm like okay, so you have to watch. But this season I was 9 p.m. every night. I was there. So I'm excited to hear what you think at the end.
It is wild how much there is and what I imagine was like every week. It's like, we're going to put out 2 episodes, and then there's the unseen bits, and then there's the weekly recap, and it's like,
and there's After Sun, which is like the whole thing is like After Sun.
Yeah, I will say I do skip the After Sun.
No,
I
After Sun is not
bits.
Critical. Oh, okay.
Because the unseen bits I do think are funny, but wow, I'm watching it more as a like the way that I would approach a documentary. Like I need not the like Sterling motherfucker. I need like David Attenborough to voice this, because I'm watching it almost from like an anthropomorphic like anthropological perspective of like, is this what the youth are doing? And I say youth, but they're like 4, maybe 2 years younger than me.
Right.
Because wow, they don't communicate at all. And that's shocking.
Yeah. They're emotionally repressed. Yeah. I went as Love
fun.
Island for Halloween once with my friends. Like I got really into it in 2019, so I've been into it since then. But it's a study in people.
That I can definitely agree with. It's been a journey. But I think I'm starting to understand it now. I just didn't realize that I needed to invest like 30 hours before I was like, oh, they swap? There's a wife swap happening here? Okay.
Yeah.
I was not aware. But yes, that's brought me a lot of joy, and I will keep folks updated on there.
Please do.
I have been waiting on bated breath, Cassidy, to hear your Twilight backstory. And I would love you to unhinge your jaw and just tell us everything.
You. I literally am so ready to do so. So I will preface this by saying that I feel like I have like kind of a poor memory, but I did try to like do my best to kind of like recall and like make this make sense. So
give us the red string.
Just from the beginning, I got into Twilight when I was 11. I feel like that's a very normal thing probably.
Yes.
Across the board. I got into it when I was 11 years old, so that was 2000. I got into it in like early 2008, so it was right before Breaking Dawn, the book, came out, and then obviously before the Twilight film came out, also in 2008.
Okay.
So I don't know how I first got into it. I'm sure I've been very online from a young age, which haven't we all? Explains a lot,
right?
Etc. Yeah. Why I have the job I have, why I'm the person I am. But I was online very young, and I guess I just picked it up. I mean, obviously it was wildly popular. The books were so popular, and I picked it up after, I guess, Eclipse had come out, and was like just rabid, read through them, and then I got really involved in the various I guess it was like, I think it was LiveJournal, and then it was just like a few other blogs. Yes. So I was on specifically hisgoldeneyes.com, which was a big part of my life. And then I was talking to a friend recently trying to remember this through other people who were in my life at that time, because I have a poor memory. And she's like, "Didn't you have a tote bag?" And I was like, "I had a tote bag?" I was like, "Yeah, I had a and the lion fell in love with the lamb tote bag from hisgoldeneyes.com that I would carry around as an 11-year-old, turning 12-year-old. And I remember for my 12th birthday, which I guess was, this is all like 6th grade, like middle school, or my 12th birthday, my friend got me Eclipse. So I suppose I like had read the first two and maybe hadn't read that one by June of 2008. And then I read Eclipse. So I was really big fan of the books. And then I remember I was really excited for the film, and I got really into like the set photos. I was really into like Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart as people by the time like they were cast. Like I was like, okay, I'm here. Like, oh, this is my focus. Okay. And I kind of shifted. I obviously like liked the books, was involved with that, but I was like so excited for the movie, and I became just deeply invested in like the set photos. I was a major like standing them, or like shipping them together, being like, oh my god, like they should date. They're dating about Rob and Kristen. I specifically dredged up from my memory that I made a like a slideshow, like YouTube, like literally like a shitty slideshow YouTube video set to Kingdom Come by Coldplay. That was set photos of the two of them. So it was just Rob Pattinson and Kristen Stewart like in the like at school in the tree, and this was before the movie came out. I was really invested. Damn. I don't know where that is, and I don't know if it's still on YouTube. And I should have looked that up before I said it, but we'll find out. So I was really invested there. Also, stop me if I'm talking too much. And then we get into...
No, I'm entranced.
So I was super... And then, okay, just as like a backup, I was Team Edward. I was... I don't know, like my focus was like, I remember like I really liked Alice. Like everyone obviously loves Alice. I was just very kind of invested in it from like a very normal narrative thing. But then I just got like really online. And then I was like really excited for the movie. And then... so that's I turned 12 that summer, and then the book came out in August. Breaking Dawn came out in August, and I was there at midnight. I was at the Barnes & Noble in Brick Township, New Jersey, with my friend or whatever, and I got the book, and I read it, and I think mid Breaking Dawn is where I started to kind of realize that I didn't like Twilight that much. Or, like, obviously now I have such a deep appreciation. No. But during Breaking Dawn, I was like, oh, this is kind of conservative. Like I think I was just like, my like political consciousness was like just being formed. And I was just being like, as I was reading it, and obviously like, it's Breaking Dawn. It's an eventful novel, which I just looked up was named Children's Book of the Year by the British Book Awards. And I'm like,
absolutely not.
What world is that a children's book? But anyway, and I think also my mom read it or something, and I think I remember having conversations with her about it, and I was like, it was kind of that thing where like if your mom says something or like your parents says something, then you're like, I disagree with that. So I remember saying something and me being like, actually no, it's not good. And then I like was like book club like going through it as I was reading Breaking Dawn, so that I had that like consciousness change like through Breaking Dawn. And then by the time the movie came out, November of that year, I was like didn't care. Which was so funny because I was so excited. I saw it. I did see it in theaters, but I was no longer like, I was like, oh, I'm past this. Because I've always been like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I'm too cool for this. Like, I was like, oh, I'm past this now. So I like saw it. And then I just was like, it's kind of sad. I mean, I do remember seeing it, but I just didn't get invested. And then I didn't see any of the other movies until literally 2020, I think. Because I just was like... I'm an adult now, which I wasn't, but I was very like, oh, and then of course, like in that kind of re-evaluation and the renaissance of Twilight, I've always maintained, like, to be fair, that the first movie it's a great movie, and like obviously it's a classic, and I do love it now. But so that initial thing was like I was really intensely a fan, but things change a lot when you're that age, I think. And you kind of go through periods very, very quickly. And I just kind of fell out of it. But I was deeply invested. And then I kind of became reinvested as an adult, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey to go on.
A lot of ups and downs.
Especially because I feel like a lot of folks, when Twilight was first becoming incredibly popular, which was around 2008, if they hadn't already known about the books, a lot of people fell into several, I would say like 2 or 3 camps, which is like they knew about it already and they were incredibly excited about the movie. Then they were converted by their friends at the time and they became like really into it. Or there were quite a few folks at the time who were like, vampires? No, I'm Harry Potter all the way. They were very much like, I'm not that kind of girl. And so it's interesting that you were like, I'm into this, I'm going to hyper-focus on it for a while, and then actually we're like, wait a second.
I was like,
what was that?
to be fair, like, I still, I think it was more just it was like the political and like kind of like religious implication. I was like immediately like, oh, I don't know if I feel this. And then, you've discussed this before, and just the kind of context around Bella's character and Sophie Meyer, and like, just like sexual relationships for young people and just things like that, where I was like, again, I was 12. I wasn't exactly like a great thinker, but I was just starting to think about those things, and I remember I was like, maybe this isn't the most like to me in that time, I was like, this isn't maybe the most feminist thing for me. And then I got older, I was like, okay, but it's like so important. And also now I had a ball with the movies, and I think it's really funny because I did separate myself from them, and then I got back to them, and I was like, oh, these are, I'm having so much fun with them. But I didn't have that. But yeah, I was a massive Harry Potter kid. I got really into like Star Trek, like in 2009. Actually, Star Trek was actually just after the Twilight. So anyway, just was going rapid fire like fandom stuff when I was a kid. So that was
You really got to dabble.
Yeah, exactly.
I am glad that you were able to enjoy the Renaissance in
Absolutely.
a way of being able to appreciate the movies, but also understand that they are, and that the text itself is all a problem.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, like that's the joy. But I think that's also something that I think at least I found I was as you get older, as you develop your adult consciousness, you can be like, okay, yeah, like this thing it can be important to me, and it can be kind of terrible at the same time, or like it can be like full of problems and also like something that you care about. And that's the joy of, analysis and caring about stuff like this. But it was just it was something that I got back into. And then of course the through line, is I was so invested in Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, and then my kind of life direction took me into like caring a lot about movies, and both of them have had such great careers since then, and then that has developed. So you kind of I'm always like tied to it through them, and I think that's how so many of us experience that, which is why we're here today talking about what we're about to talk about.
It's true. Yeah, I think that being able to know that the connection that you have had to them, that we are recording today on the anniversary of these two characters' wedding, has led to this discussion about Crimes of the Future, I think is a very interesting path.
Yeah.
To when you were 11 years old and your interest in Twilight was just downloaded into your brain.
Yes.
Which is as it was for so many folks. I would love to know if you could describe your initial thoughts prior to watching this movie, and then your initial thoughts immediately after watching this movie.
I will preface this by saying that it's really interesting because I am a Cronenberg fan, but I am deeply squeamish as a person. And I actually don't have as much of a relationship to, I'd say, to like a large chunk of horror. Like it's honestly like I think a blind spot in my kind of criticism film life, because I have been squeamish my whole life and it hasn't really gone away. I've improved, like I don't get as I can handle deeply scary things now, but I still I will become like lightheaded if I like deal with like you could never be a surgeon. Most of us couldn't be surgeons for different reasons, but I couldn't be a surgeon. I'm not good with those kind of things. So in general, I'm actually historically like a later Cronenberg fan, which is an easier thing to say. I know it's like more accessible, and like generally it's like not necessarily, but I'm like I would say more of like a history of violence Crash Cronenberg person. Crash is still intense, but it's like bloodless or whatever, so that's why it's So I went into this, I was terrified. I was like, how will I deal with this? I need to see it because I am an adult person who cares about movies, and I was lucky enough to see it at Cannes, and it was at Cannes, and I was like, I gotta go see the Cronenberg, but I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to manage it. And I can get into my actual experience of watching it because it's kind of funny, but I came out like slightly proud of myself for getting through it, but also I will say my initial reaction I think wasn't as strong, but then I have warmed to it significantly since I've seen it first in May. So I think that I actually feel better about it now. I will quickly just mention, so the reason I when I first saw it, it was in Cannes, and it was at one of the theaters that you have to take a bus to get to, because I wasn't there when it actually came out. I was there for like the last few days. And I woke up the next morning, and I had gone out the night before with friends, and I felt really hungover. It felt really bad. I felt very nauseous, and it's like hot, and it's like May, and I'm like, okay, well, I gotta get up really early to go see David Cronenberg's new scary movie while feeling like this. And I took the bus, I was very nauseous on the bus on the way there. I was like, this is a good start. And I was running late as well. I was like with some friends. And then I got there, and then the theater itself, like the cinema, was like not cold. It was like kind of hot. And I was like,
no,
this is even better. And then we settled in to this big sort of like lukewarm room. And it was like 9 a.m. or something. And then I sat down, and I made it, but I will say for the first like half hour, 40 minutes, I was actively fighting my own body to not be sick. And like watching this movie, listening to Viggo Mortensen like gag for just an endless period of time made it really difficult to focus and enjoy. I did leave the theater midway for about 10 minutes to just like put my head between my legs. And then I said, no, you can do it. And I went back and I finished the film. So that was the context in which I saw it, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone who hasn't seen the movie.
I feel like having a lukewarm or anything that isn't a cold movie theater is a crime.
Yeah.
I saw High Life in
that's
a
another
warm movie theater, and I could not. It was impossible for me to. I was having a similar experience as you. I was nauseous the whole time.
Yeah.
And that movie, listen, that movie's already pretty fucked up as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go to a cinema. I mean, that was like a long time ago, right? That was like when I felt comfortable in a movie theater. But I go to a movie theater to feel cold. That's how I prefer to watch a movie.
Yes. Yeah.
And the fact that it was warm and I was having to watch Robert Pattinson in a closed, claustrophobic environment, I was like, I need to get the fuck out of this place. Like, I am, I need
exactly.
I'm about to punch someone.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Yeah. So I kind of think actually being in a terrible environment that made me nauseous was like probably right for the movie. I will say.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true. I will say, like, the only thing I've seen him direct is fucking M. Butterfly. Like, I'm an English major. I don't know what to tell you. So I went into this, I'd seen the trailer, I knew it was going to be a goosh fest, and I was like, all right, I'm going into this to watch Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
I left, my impression immediately after watching it, well, my impression about 5 minutes into this, I texted Cody and was like, I'm too fucking sober for this, and I don't drink or do drugs, so I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But my impression immediately after watching this was way more of a disability film than I was fucking expecting this to be.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not what I got from the trailer. And the whole thing was about, like, here are all these accommodations and talking about pain. And I will say, David Cronenberg, you kind of romanticize pain a little bit too much, but you're an artist or whatever the fuck, so I get it, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the most there were several things that were incredibly off-putting about this movie. One of them, I will say, Caprice using a wooden spoon to eat bacon. I think that'll haunt me forever. What the actual fuck
all
is
of
that?
the eating scenes I cannot revisit. Which is, I know, the point, but...
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it starts off with Brecken eating a trash can, I was like, I'm okay. Like...
Your note, like, is he eating the trash can? And you're like, yeah.
He actually is eating the plastic.
Yeah, also the big twist, I suppose, of the film being microplastics is just really, you're like, whoa, somebody is reading the news, which of course that isn't the whole point, but it's like, yeah, man, there is plastic in our food. Like, what are we doing about that? It feels very contemporary in a way that's very funny, and it feels, to me, another reason I think it's unsettling is that like almost like it feels like a stage show. Like, a lot of it feels very like you're like in that room and it's kind of like everything's kind of flat. Like, it's not very cinematic, you know what I mean? So it's a very kind of like flat space sometimes, and it feels kind of like, and also the score is kind of overbearing and funny as well. But we're just watching these people. We're just fully also watching animatronic, like, real life prop work, which is refreshing but kind of like very odd feeling sometimes. The
idea of the plastics was interesting to me, especially with the way the way that, what the fuck was Brecken's dad's name? But the way that his
Lang?
like posse Lang, thank you. The way that his like posse is solving for that of like we're gonna eat essentially like plastic Snickers all the time.
Menacingly.
Yeah. And because the fact that these are, we can eat them and like we can digest them, but you can't. And I found that very wild and very, I don't know, when I was watching it, it just felt like David was looking at me while I was watching it and like, do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get the point? Do you get the point that like fucking Saul is making all of these organs and he's in so much chronic pain all the time and he hasn't thought like, what if I consider another option? It was just like, do you get it yet? Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. The idea though that there is a national organ, one, the fact that this society doesn't experience pain, I find absurd. Like, it doesn't surprise me, right? It's like, it's just weird that they would go like, oh, we don't experience pain. So the natural logical step to that is like, we don't have infection, so we don't need to wash our hands. It is very interesting, but also then that people like Caprice and even Timlin too would be like, we're gonna look at Saul, who's very obviously like dying, and be like, we're gonna romanticize you because we don't know what that feels like, so tell us everything about it. And we're not interested in you, we're just interested in like you have something we don't.
I think we should just definitely discuss like that, the registry. I mean, we're, Kristen Stewart obviously bringing us here. It's funny how much of the movie is spent on like, it's like, this is bureaucracy. Like, it's just like, we're in like a brown room and they're like, oh, there's files to be done. And I know that's like it's making fun of, I mean, it's very literally like poking fun at that. And also, saying, these people are being ridiculous and they are making, they're trying to like contain biology, but also that they are trying to, I mean, they're manipulative and, they're the government, but also the kind of, I think they are romanticizing pain. And he's like, no, this sucks. Like, this is not good. You do not want this. And they're like, oh, but, and yeah, Timlin, man, Timlin. How do you both feel about that performance? Because I've heard a lot of things both ways.
Kristen's voice in this is, I feel like she went so hard in this for what I didn't realize was just going to be like maybe 30 minutes max screen time.
True. Yeah. She's
going so hard in the pain. The fact that her voice rarely registers above a whisper the entire time. And that she does... one, there's a point where she does her, like, what I consider the Case-Do signature, like, eyebrow raise, which I was like, oh, there it is. But I also thought it was really interesting that she chose Timlin to be almost, like, constantly, like, with tears in her eyes. And I was like, yo, okay, I want to know all of the, like, study that you did for this character. Tell me everything, please.
Yeah, like, what led you to this place? All of her tics, and I know this has been discussed, but, like, all of her tics are things that people, like, acting coaches and people who, are, like, teach acting are, like, don't do that. Like, don't use your hands. Like, don't touch your hair a lot. Like, you look self-conscious. It looks like you're not acting, but obviously she, it's very intentional, and it comes from, and those are her signature things. But you're right, her hands are really, really special.
And I think especially for the characters that she has selected throughout her career, it makes a lot of sense. And in this character too, I think it makes a lot of sense. What I did not expect was that Timlin's character was going to be like, have this awakening that fucking Saul and Caprice's performance was sex, and be like, okay, I thought I was like down to clown, that I love organs, I'm like in it for the science bit, but actually I'm also very horny.
Actually, I'm just horny. Yeah. And then she becomes
And
like this massively like active, like very almost, you know, she's pursuing him. She's pursuing this. She's like, let me in.
I also thought that scene, because there's two like really intimate scenes. There's that one right after the first performance where she's like, wait a damn minute, this is sex. And then the one in the office. And the one in the office I found really interesting because it shows that Timlin's character isn't just like a horny super fan, but also isn't really just interested in Saul, but is more so interested in like Saul's body, and not in a like, not in the way that we would consider now, which is like, I just want your dick, but like, I want your organs. Like, when she opens his mouth, it was so creepy.
Yeah. She was really good in that. I found it very, like, to me, I thought it was like, she's very, like, objectifying, and that's kind of part of the thing, is that they're just, like, using his body, and, like, you know, humanhood doesn't really exist there. But yeah, she's really good in that.
It was wild. Yeah, I was very interested in that character. And also weirdly interested in Saul's whole thing of like, I'm gonna be a double agent. I'm gonna be this person who seemingly is like the only person who is like cloaked in this city, and I'm gonna try to like be subtle and work both sides of the government. Right. We know who you are, sir.
We can see you. You can barely move. Like, yeah, you're a tall man. Like, you're coughing everywhere. Like,
right.
You were like gagging. Yeah.
Wild.
I will say that I think favorite thing, I guess it's very conventional, but like my favorite thing in the movie was really like the Saul Caprice like relationship, and like I just found it very nice, and like they like just that kind of like, it is obviously romantic and it is obviously sexual, but it's just that kind of like they are partners, and also that they like really just support each other. And then also I just am such a Léa Seydoux fan, and I think that she was just, I mean, giving a completely different performance, intentionally, obviously so, to most of the people in the movie, or like definitely different than what Kristen Stewart's doing. But I just loved her in this, and I just thought she was so good. I know that famously, like, you know, her face is like everywhere, and she's like always crying, and she always gets to do all these big parts, but I think she's great in it.
She did a really good job in this. I don't know that I've seen her in anything before, and I couldn't keep my eyes off of her.
She's very captivating.
Seeing the way that technology was portrayed, especially from the lens of how it's supposed to be accessible, seeing what, I think that there was a specific name for it, the orchid bed, it like super grossed me out when I first saw it, because I was like, what the actual fuck is that? But seeing that knowing what the technology was and how it was supposed to anticipate Saul's pain beforehand, I was like, sign me up. I don't care how much that is. I need it right now.
Yeah.
And then the breakfaster is something that kind of exists now, but seeing the skeleton that it's made out of was super interesting, and the way that it like shook to help with digestion was like, I know that there were so many people that were consulted with that to make it actually work. I was like, that's super cool. The Sark absolutely creeped me out. The autopsy machine, but in a way that I was like, this is work, like it is doing its intended purpose, because you're not supposed to be alive when you're in this thing. But wow. All of the like, there was a specific organization that all of those things came from, because we saw the like two henchwomen going around and like killing people, but all of those were very interesting to see. And I don't know that I've ever thought about what that technology would look like in a place that doesn't really have like cars or planes, and the ships are but they're still advanced. Very interesting and well thought out.
Yeah, it's cool to also just see, like, even if, like, yeah, I think that that's all so interesting, and also just from, like, no one gets to do this in movies anymore, and it's just really exciting to be, like, someone had some ideas, and they actually got to realize them with, like, with with a bunch of like really smart production designers and like set builders and people who actually do this work, and you get to see all this cool stuff. And that of course is like, that's very quintessential like early Cronenberg, and obviously like the horror and a lot of the work in the 70s and 80s. So it's just really nice to see, even if I'm like, I'm scared or this is like, don't fully know where this is going. But yeah, it is also just that is such a clear like aesthetic choice. And then also just, it's just, yeah, just, it's very fun to see something original, and that is that original as well.
Yeah, I hope that someday those pieces of tech go into one of the like film museums, because it'd be cool to see for scale what those actually look like. I would like to sit in the Brickfaster, please. I would like to know.
Feed me.
I would like to know what that is like.
Yeah, totally.
And also just see, like, I don't know. I personally, it was nice to know Viggo Mortensen portrayal in a film that isn't fucking Green Book. So thank you, David Cronenberg, for.
Yeah, no, he's Viggo's come back. Not that he was ever really gone, but he's doing movies again. On the David Cronenberg's wiki, I didn't know this, but they have David Cronenberg, other names, the Baron of Blood, or the King of Venereal Horror. And I'm just like, who's walking around calling David Cronenberg the Baron of Blood? It just made me laugh.
Does he like put that on his Taco Bell orders?
Right,
like, sorry, we have the. That should be our new merch.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
I wonder if he has that trademarked, because that would be very good.
I don't think he has that trademarked. I would really, I would be very surprised if David Cronenberg trademarked anything in his own name.
The movie that we're reviewing after this, so next week when this episode is coming out, I'm unfortunately being required to, and I thought I was going to get through and never have to watch this, but we are unfortunately watching and reviewing on the podcast Morbius, so.
Oh. You know what? I haven't. It's Morbin time. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
I'm so excited for you to watch it so you can listen along. God. We have some amazing patrons to thank. Cody, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. Thank you to Katie Black.
Ooh. Thank you to Kylie Menti.
Ow. Thank you to Alex Dornan.
Ooh. Thank you to Carrie Goldberg.
Ooh. Thank you to Rebecca Cullen.
Ooh. Thank you to Jasmine Anastasia.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Thank you to Megan Pattinson.
Ooh. Thank you to Cassandra O'Shea.
O'Shea. Thank you to Clara Belikov.
Ooh. Thank you to Kati Karp.
Ow.
Ow.
Thank you to Hannah Dragomir.
Ooh. Thank you to Hope Castile.
Burr, 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 burr. Thank you to Rachel Ashford.
Oh. Thank you to Emerson Kurova.
Burr, burr, burr. Thank you to Maddie Facinelli.
Hell yeah. Thank you to Samara Rinaldi.
Ow.
Ow.
Thank you to Genevieve Morgan.
Ow. Thank you to Tess Avery.
Ooh, ooh. Thank you to Danielle Burke.
Oh. Thank you to my mom, your mom, our mom, Kelly Beck.
Mom. Thank you to Sophia Salinger.
Oh. Thank you to Laura Forty.
Ooh. Thank you to Dan Zeklos.
Thank you to Maria Swan.
Ooh. Thank you to India Peach.
Ooh. Thank you to Emily Ozera.
And last but certainly not least, thank you to Jaylene Ivishkov.
Oh, snap. So I'm very excited, Cassidy, to hear what fan fiction that you brought to the space today.
Thank you so much. So in the spirit of the show, I thought I would see if there was any popular or new or just in general any fanfic out there about Crimes of the Future, because I feel like it just invented this universe, right? Like it's a very rich universe to explore. There's only so much time in that world. So I went and I will be reading the very end of Lavender Running Through My Blood by none other but than Sons of Gondor, which is a fanfic about Crimes of the Future. And the summary is Saul performs some research with the Sark.
Okay.
And I will go ahead. This is the end, so it's just kind of something. Honestly, I thought it was very nice, but it's about it's a period of him working with the Sark, which we just discussed was a bit scary. When he gazes down at his unmoving form, though unfocused and unsteady from this vantage point, the bloody mess of his body mesmerizes him. He did this, nobody but him and the Sark, merging together to create a canvas out of his flesh. All the wonderful sensations of extraction, and none of the fanfare. None of the emptiness afterwards either. He runs a shaky, sticky hand over his abdomen, for once not needing to know what his insides are manifesting. They're creating art within him, the same as he's just done on his own body. It's the first time he's truly felt a kinship with these creations, as if they're a part of him and not just parasites. They're more than infections welled up, taking over from the inside out. He imagines these organs, tries to visualize what they look like inside. Some meandering, porous forms pressing up against his physiology, doing whatever they please, taking root, finding their place within him, making room where there is none, doing what they see fit. It's with these thoughts that Saul finds himself at peace, and when he exhales, he barely registers that all traces of discomfort have subsided, only enough to be grateful for it. A dreamless, painless sleep settles over him, and he finds himself wholly at harmony with machine, with mankind, and with himself. The end.
Wow.
It's a nice piece of writing. Thank you, Sons of Gondor.
I like it.
We know why you saw this movie, but I'm glad that you got something out of it.
Cassie, where online can folks go to support your work?
Thank you for asking. I am wholly too much on Twitter at Olsen Cassidy. My work being tweets there, so feel free to follow me there. I post some of my photography and some of my film posters, things that are upcoming, and any general news in regards to my filmmaking on my Instagram, which is at Cassidy Olsen, like casket. And
nice, great.
That's about it. I would say don't go to my website. It's not that interesting. And if I'm ever writing something, you'll see it on Twitter. So those places. And as I've already shouted out, go ahead and follow Burrs Letters, who designed some great posters and made the poster that you guys kindly complimented earlier on. And that's it.
Amazing. We will definitely need to have you back so we can finally talk about Jersey Shore.
Please.
As needed.
That we'll figure out a way to make that relevant.
Cody so kindly gave me a Jersey Shore and Twilight shirt.
What?
That I often wear around my home, and it is incredibly important to me. So for anyone saying Jersey Shore is not Twilight related, I ask you to think broader and use your critical thinking skills. So we're so happy to have had you here. Thank you so much for taking the time when you are in the future, and it is now afternoon where you are. So
thanks so much for having me.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
And for our usual folks, enjoy the rest of the movies that you are getting throughout this time. And as we say here in the Pacific Northwest,
get bit.
And get whipped. Ooh.
Into the Twilight is an Earbud Media production. You can follow us on Twitter at Into the Twilight or on TikTok at Into the Twilight Show. You can find me at Cody Corral on Twitter and Allie at Alexandria Does. And you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Into the Twilight. We have merch, so much stuff. All those links are in the episode description. And make sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcast hosting platform. It really helps the show. Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to Earbud Media Production. Earbud Media, audio for everyone.